Ever walk into your kitchen first thing in the morning and there it is again? That steady drip, drip, drip coming from the faucet? You crank the handle tighter, maybe jiggle it a little, and it stops for a second before starting right back up. So you call a plumber, and he shows up, spends about 15 minutes under your sink, and hands you a bill for $350 to $400. Here's the thing. That repair almost always comes down to one small part called a cartridge, and it costs about $9 at any hardware store. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to replace a faucet cartridge yourself, step by step, start to finish. Plus, stick around to the end because I've got a bonus tip that will help your new cartridge last twice as long as the old one did. Let's get into it. Replacing a faucet cartridge is honestly one of the most satisfying repairs you can learn as a homeowner. It's the #1 cause of a dripping or leaking faucet, and once you understand how it works, you can knock this out in about 15 minutes with just a couple of basic tools. No special skills required. So let's start by understanding what a cartridge actually does inside your faucet. Think of the cartridge as the brain of your faucet. It's a small cylinder that sits inside the faucet body, right underneath the handle. When you turn the handle, you're really turning or lifting that cartridge, and it controls how much hot and cold water flows through. Over time, the rubber seals inside the cartridge wear out. That's what causes the drip. No amount of tightening the handle is going to fix worn-out seals. You need a fresh cartridge. The good news is pulling the old one out and dropping a new one in is about as simple as plumbing gets. You just need to know the right order to do things, and that's exactly what I'm going to show you. The first thing you want to do before you touch anything on that faucet is shut off the water. Look underneath your sink and you'll see 2 small valves, one for hot and one for cold. They're usually oval-shaped handles, or sometimes small lever-style quarter-turn valves. Turn them both clockwise until they stop. If you've got the lever style, rotate them so the lever is perpendicular to the pipe. Now here's something a lot of people skip, and it causes a mess every time. After you shut off those valves, go ahead and turn the faucet on to relieve the pressure. You'll get a short burst of water, and then it should slow to nothing. If water keeps flowing at full pressure, your shut-off valves aren't sealing properly, and you'll need to shut off the main water supply to the house instead. While you're at it, plug the drain with a rag or a sink stopper. I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone drop a small screw right down the drain and spend the next hour fishing it out. One rag in the drain saves you a whole lot of frustration. Grab a small towel and lay it on the counter next to you. That's where you'll set your parts in the order you remove them. So reassembly is a breeze. Now let's take that handle off. This is where most people get nervous, but it's really straightforward. On most single-handle faucets, there's a small decorative cap on the front or top of the handle. It might say hot and cold on it, or it might just be a plain colored disc. You can pop that off gently with a flathead screwdriver, or even a butter knife. Go easy. You don't want to scratch the finish. Underneath that cap, you'll find a screw. On most faucets, it's either a Phillips head screw or a small hex screw, which is also called an Allen screw. If it's a hex screw, you'll typically need a 3/32 inch or 1/8 inch Allen wrench. This is the #1 tool people don't have ready, and then they're making a trip to the hardware store before they even get started. So check that ahead of time. Once you've got that screw out, the handle should lift or pull straight off. Sometimes it's a little stuck from mineral buildup, especially if you have hard water. If it won't budge, don't force it sideways. You could crack the handle. Instead, wiggle it gently while pulling straight up. If it's really seized on there, you can wrap a rag around it and use a pair of channel lock pliers for a little extra grip. Just protect the finish with that rag. By the way, if you're finding this advice helpful, you should know it's just a small sample of what I've put into my new guide, The Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It's packed with step-by-step instructions for hundreds of repairs that can save you thousands. To grab your copy, you can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or just use the first link in the description below. All right, let's continue. With the handle off, you'll now be looking at the cartridge, or at least the top of it. On many faucets, there's a retaining nut or a bonnet nut that holds the cartridge in place. It's usually a larger hex nut, and you'll need an adjustable wrench or a pair of channel locks to unscrew it. Turn it counterclockwise to loosen it. Set that nut on your towel. Now, some faucets, especially Moen brand, use a small brass or plastic retaining clip instead of a nut. It's a tiny U-shaped clip that slides horizontally into a slot on the faucet body. You can pull it out with a pair of needle nose pliers. Once whatever is holding the cartridge in place has been removed, you should be able to grip the top of the cartridge, which is usually called the stem, and pull it straight up and out. Sometimes it comes out easily. Sometimes it feels like it's cemented in there. If the cartridge is stuck, here's what I do. I use a pair of regular pliers to grip the stem and twist it back and forth gently while pulling up. If that still doesn't work, they actually sell a cartridge puller tool at most hardware stores for about $10 to $15. For Moen cartridges specifically, Moen makes their own puller that works perfectly. It threads onto the cartridge and gives you the leverage to pull it straight out without damaging anything. Don't try to pry it out from the side. You can scratch up the inside of the faucet body, and then you've got a bigger problem on your hands. Now that you've got the old cartridge in your hand, this is the most important step of the entire job, getting the right replacement. Cartridges are not universal. Each faucet brand, and sometimes each model within a brand, uses a different cartridge. Here's what I recommend. First, look at the cartridge itself for any numbers or letters stamped into it. A lot of them have a part number right on the side. Second, if you know the brand of your faucet, write that down. Third, and this is the easiest method, just take the old cartridge with you to the hardware store. Walk up to the plumbing aisle, and you'll find a display wall with dozens of replacement cartridges hanging on hooks. Match yours up visually and by the part number. Most replacement cartridges run between $7 and $12. The one that matches your faucet will almost certainly be in that range. If you want to save the trip, you can also look up the part number online and order it, but honestly, I like holding the old one next to the new one to make sure it's an exact match before I leave the store. Once you've got your new cartridge, installation is basically the removal process in reverse. Before you slide it in, take a look at the new cartridge and you'll notice it has rubber O-rings around it. I like to put a thin coat of Plumbers grease, sometimes called silicone faucet grease, on those O-rings before installing. It costs about $4 for a tube, and it makes the cartridge slide in smoothly and helps the seals last longer. Just a light coating. You don't need to glob it on. Now, pay attention to the orientation. Most cartridges have a flat side or a tab on the stem that needs to line up with a notch or a flat spot in the faucet body. If you put it in the wrong way, your hot and cold will be reversed. So take a look before you push it down. The cartridge should slide into the faucet body with just moderate hand pressure. If you have to really force it, stop and double check that you have the right part and the right orientation. Once it's seated all the way down, reinstall the retaining nut and tighten it with your adjustable wrench. Snug it up, but don't crank on it. You just want it firm. If your faucet uses a retaining clip instead, slide that clip back into its slot until it clicks or seats fully. Give it a little tug to make sure it's locked in place. Now, let's put it all back together and see if we fixed it. Slide the handle back onto the stem in the same position it came off. Insert the screw and tighten it. Snug, not gorilla tight. Pop your decorative cap back on. Now, before you turn the water back on, make sure the faucet handle is in the off position. Go underneath the sink and slowly open the hot valve first, just part way. You might hear some air sputtering through the faucet. That's totally normal. Let it run for about 30 seconds until the flow is steady and smooth. Then open the cold valve the same way. Once both are fully open, turn the faucet on and off a few times. Test hot and cold, and check underneath the sink around those shut-off valves and supply lines. Look closely. Sometimes a very small drip will only show up after a minute or two. Grab a paper towel and run it along the connections. If it comes back dry, you're golden. The whole job, once you've done it once, honestly takes about 15 minutes. Let's talk about some common problems you might run into and how to solve them. First, if the faucet still drips after you install the new cartridge, the most likely cause is that the cartridge isn't seated all the way down. Pull the handle back off, remove the retaining nut, and push the cartridge down firmly. Make sure it's bottomed out completely in the faucet body. That fixes it about 90% of the time. Second, if your hot and cold are reversed after the repair, don't worry. You didn't break anything. You just installed the cartridge 180 degrees off. Pull it out and rotate it half a turn, then reinstall it. This is extremely common and an easy fix. Third, if the cartridge won't come out and you've tried pliers and twisting, mineral deposits are probably locking it in. Try spraying some penetrating oil, like PB Blaster, around the base of the cartridge and let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes before trying again. That usually breaks it free. Fourth, if you notice water leaking from around the base of the faucet body itself, rather than from the spout, the O-rings on the faucet body may be worn. That's a separate issue from the cartridge. But while you've got things apart, it's worth replacing those O-rings too. They cost about $2 for a pack. Fifth, if your shut-off valves under the sink won't close all the way and water keeps trickling through, you've got a valve issue. For now, shut off the main water supply to the house, finish your cartridge job, and plan to replace those shut-off valves soon. That's a separate project, but just as doable. If you follow the steps we covered today, you should be able to avoid most of these issues entirely. Now for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning: how to make your new cartridge last twice as long. The number one killer of faucet cartridges is hard water. Those dissolved minerals build up on the rubber seals inside the cartridge and cause them to crack and fail. Here's what I do on every faucet I work on. Once a year, I shut off the water, pull the cartridge out, and give it a quick soak in plain white vinegar for about 30 minutes. The vinegar dissolves the mineral buildup without damaging the rubber. Then I recoat the O-rings with a fresh layer of Plumbers grease and slide it back in. The whole maintenance takes maybe 10 minutes once a year. And I've had cartridges last 8 to 10 years doing this, compared to the typical 3 to 5 years most people get. If you've got really hard water, you might want to do it every 6 months. It's free, it's fast, and it saves you from buying a new cartridge and doing this whole job again anytime soon. That little bit of preventive care goes a long way. Before you go, I want to make sure you know about my complete guide, the Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It goes way deeper than we can in a single video, with 85 pages covering everything from clearing any clog to replacing your own water heater. If you want to stop wasting money on simple fixes, this book is for you. Just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to get your copy. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one.